Determine if the lines given by the following equations are parallel or perpendicular or neither. Okay, so before we actually go into anything, right, let's talk about how to know if lines are parallel or perpendicular or not. Okay, so parallel lines have the same slope, the same exact number, right? So the slopes should be the same. Okay, what about perpendicular lines though? Okay, well, first of all, perpendicular lines, what makes lines perpendicular? Okay, so perpendicular lines cross at a right angle. Okay, so it's not just some random way that they intersect. Okay, but perpendicular lines cross at a right angle. So their slopes, okay, are what is called negative reciprocals. Okay, so this is certainly something you want to make sure you remember, right? So what does it mean if the slopes are negative reciprocals? Well, that means that one should be positive and one of them should be negative. And then the numbers themselves should be reciprocals of each other. Okay, so notice that here we have two equations, right? So what we need to do is we need to determine the slope of each line and then compare them and determine if the lines are parallel or perpendicular or not. Remember, the best way to do this, right? The best way to do this would be just to solve for y. Let's do that for the first one here, okay? Let's subtract the 2x to both sides. We know that the 2x's will cancel out on the left, so we get negative 3y equals negative 2x plus 1. And here, let's divide everything by negative 3, because that does isolate the y, right? We get the y by itself, so y is equal to, now here you're going to be careful with your signs, right? We get positive 2/3 x minus 1/3. Now, the 1/3 is not really that important here, right? Because we're not drawing this or doing anything else, right? We're answering this question if the lines are parallel or perpendicular or not. So here, the slope is the coefficient of x, which is 2/3. So now we want to look at the other equation, find its slope, and compare it. Okay, so first thing we should do here is subtract the 4x to both sides. Remember, we're trying to solve this for y, right? We want to get the y by itself. So we end up with 6y equals negative 4x plus 5. And then we're going to divide everything by 6. Okay? That does cancel out the 6's here, right? 6 divided by 6 is equal to 1. So we get y equals now negative 4 over 6. So we can certainly reduce that to get negative 2 over 3rd x plus 5 over 6. Once again, in terms of this question, the 5 over 6 is not that important, right? It does represent the y-intercept, but we just want the slope, right? Here the slope is negative 2/3. So now that we have each slope, what can we conclude? Are the slopes exactly the same? And the answer is no, right? So these lines are not parallel. Now, are the slopes negative reciprocals of each other? Well, one's positive and one's negative, that's good, but are these numbers reciprocals of each other? And the answer is no. So what can we conclude then? We can conclude that the lines are neither parallel nor perpendicular.